outside. Our mayor's panel is about to begin. I'll turn the sound down in a second. Mayor's panel. Okay. Thank you all for coming. I want to say that I feel that we are extremely fortunate in our area to have some pretty incredible elected officials, and I'm going to give them all kudos first, because as an advocacy adversary group, sometimes in the Ecology Center, we don't always agree with everything y'all do, but I think we really have a high respect for your intelligence and integrity, and really care about the community and how we can operate here in our city. So the theme of this mayor's panel is community resiliency, and we thought of this panel originally with regards to fire resiliency, because of course this summer the areas around us were hit with devastating wildfires, and we became quite concerned. How can our community respond? How can we keep ourselves safe? How can we come up with something that not only keeps us safe from the forest fires and so forth, but also helps our communities thrive? And because resiliency is more than just your house not burning down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of you in turn if you'd like to make a little bit of a statement and kind of tell us what your city is doing individually and with the surrounding communities to address the topic of resiliency. I guess Barb, since you're closest to me, I'll give you the mic. I'll turn it down.
I'm just going to answer the question as far as what resiliency means to me. I liken it to my adventures on the river. So when you're a group of people and you're going down the river, you're going to be subject to all sorts of weather conditions and strength of the river and the current. And what you want to rely on is that each member of the team, if they go out of their boat, they can self-rescue. So you're looking for self-reliance first. And then, if everyone can self-rescue, you also rely on each person to be able to rescue other members of the group. And I think the same thing applies to the community. If you're preparing for fire season, which is a few months away now, you want to, as an individual, know exactly what your plan is, be prepared, know what you're going to do, know how you're going to evacuate, have your evacuation plan ready, to the point where you also have extra energy to help other members of the community as well. So do you know your neighbors? Are you making your network? Do you know who else needs help in your community? So for me, resilience means you're not only self-sufficient, but you also have extra energy to help your neighbors and know what else is needed around you.
In Alpine City, I would say that having experienced somewhat of a catastrophic fire going through our community, for me it means there is personal resiliency, there is resiliency in your city, there's resiliency in your social networks. That does kind of mimic what Barbara is talking about. But I think it goes a little further in that you have to put things in place ahead of schedule, or at least attempt to prepare your neighborhood for shocks of, not just shocks of a fire, but possibly economic stresses. Weed faces economic downturns, has been facing an economic downturn for quite some time. We do have a number of jobs in weed. We just don't have the housing that goes with those jobs. So for me, meaning resiliency is making your neighborhood strong in all facets.
Thank you. My name is Juliana Lucchese, and I am the mayor of the city of Dunsmuir. I've been in office since November of last year, so it's new. So for the city of Dunsmuir, we're currently in a situation where we're not at our financial best. And so we've reestablished some goals for ourselves in the next year to achieve financial resiliency for the city, to understand The Delta fire specifically this past summer pretty much dropped our sales and income sales tax and our special use tax for that funds our programs. The pool, the library, things like that, that tax saw an 82% decrease because of the Delta fire. And so we're not able to support some of the community resources that we typically would be giving to our residents, one being our pool. It serves as a safe place for kids to go and play while some of their parents have a chance to take 2.5 hours to go do laundry, to go do some chores. And we do have a larger case of, lower income families, single parent income families who use those services, so not being able to provide that is part of the resiliency dialogue. It's the ability for our residents to, one, feel prideful in the place that they live, but also to feel safe. So what we're doing in the city of Dunsmuir is we've developed a disaster planning advisory committee that's made up of volunteers. We have a really great group of 5 people who are working on how we're going to communicate with our residents, how we're going to assure them things are safe, how we're going to look at our communication channels. They're working with our fire chief right now for the upcoming fire season, utilizing some of our plans that we already have in place and not trying to replan every plan is really important for us. So we're moving forward and trying to listen to what our residents are already doing well. So the city of Dunsmuir, its residents have a lot of gumption and they'll do the work that they need done. So they are, right now, we're doing a lot of organics for composting on home sites, teaching people to do that at home since we don't have pickup service right now, getting rid of the fuels that are on their properties and ultimately helping them get a better insurance rate. Right now, about 62% of the residents in Dunsmuir have not been reinsured this year, which is a huge issue for resiliency when you start talking about the economic and social piece. People's houses are not just their homes, they're their economic base. So it's an ability to leverage funding. And so losing their homes to a fire and not having appropriate insurance, could put our city back a whole generation of debt and low income. So we're looking at a number of different things, staying positive can be difficult sometimes. The other thing too for us is looking at the Sacramento River. So we are prone to flooding just as much as we are prone to wildfires. So resiliency extends to a lot of those different areas of our daily lives. It extends to the function of our city.
Okay. All right, I'm going to move this chair because there were 4 chairs at this table. A little early. Thank you. It's kind of like a talking stick, I guess. Well, that's great. I know that there are a lot of different agencies that you're involved with as mayors. I mean, when you think about the fire, you think of CAL FIRE and your different fire departments and special districts. And could you address a little bit about how the coordination of agencies and services impacts all y'all's ability to come up with a comprehensive plan or look at that in a little more holistic kind of way?
So for the city of Dunsmuir, we don't currently have a city manager who is the main city staffer who communicates with other agencies. So we're having to do it all collectively. So right now, we're really thankful to have a really great communication with Mercy Medical here in Mount Shasta. They're assisting us with some of our disaster planning to talk about the health impacts that could happen during fires, especially with the air pollution issue. We also have, we work pretty closely with CAL FIRE, the state of California's Office of Planning and Research, as well as the California Energy Commission is a new one that we're working with to make sure that in the winter months that our residents have continued power. So the Energy Commission's been playing a bigger role for the city of Dunsmuir, making sure that people have power all throughout the winter months.
Should I comment on that? Go ahead.
Well, the city, we actually, as we went through, we found that some of the agencies that really assisted were the Office of Emergency Systems, I guess it's called services. Sorry. CAL FIRE was our main fire department, so we did have a leg up on the fact that we had a structure in place on the fire unit. We no longer have that agency because of cost factors. We had to change our system. We're developing some emergency backups as we go, but we still have a very strong contingency of CAL FIRE in our community. They have been there for years. It does give us a little bit of consistency on how we approach a fire, but I think it's more than just fires in the community that impact us. The drought is impacting us. Water is impacting us, and how we obtain our water. There are many stresses on the community. And I think just to solely address one, you miss the overall impacts of all these stresses that apply to small cities in particular. That's just.
Well, we're a large county, we have like 30 fire departments, so we have mutual aid agreements across the county and across the state, actually, multi-state. So when there is an emergency fire, then we call on other agencies to come help us. So that's, and it's the city manager who coordinates all that. We had a meeting with Pacific Power about power outages. You know, we need to be ready for those power outages when they come. So not only do the agencies notify themselves right away and give themselves at least 48 hours notice if a power outage is going to happen, they try to do the same thing with the public at the same time. So they want to notify the public at the same time as the interagency communication on power outages. Again, we're encouraging people to be self-sufficient. If there's a power outage, do you have what you need to survive a power outage? If you're on life-saving equipment, you've got to make sure that you have your backup generator and so forth. What else? Interagencies, fire. Office of Emergency Services has a database of all community members that need special assistance, and you can apply for that online as well if you need special assistance. I think our city of Mount Shasta is also developing its own database so that it has that parallel database for the people within the city of Mount Shasta, so they can be independent of the county. And so they're moving in that direction.
How do you deal with fragmentation? I mean, do you find that you're all able to work well with these services? I mean, you've got 3 fire departments, different police departments, different agencies. Is there any possibility of getting economies of scale and efficiency by you consolidating your services? You're all 3 small cities, relatively speaking.
I think Siskiyou County consists of all small cities. I do believe there's a plan in place. It used to be called the Amigo Plan, where there's mutual assistance. I know when the Bulls Fire hit our community of we had assistance not only from Dunsmuir, Mount Shasta, Wairika. We had mutual aid assistance from across the state. So there was a very large response. That is a particular fire, but I do believe there are other systems in place.
Do
Do you want to answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi there. I'm John Livingston with the Sierra Club. I came up from Reading to be at our booth, but having lived in Reading and seen the fires last summer, I was so motivated, I joined the Red Cross in the shelter program and became trained in the shelters. But through that, I've learned that the Red Cross is another agency that is moving into the disaster planning or prevention or the pre-disaster area. And I would encourage all of you to look into the Red Cross in Reading to see if they have any programs that can assist you with pre-disaster planning. Okay? The second thing is having an exit, a second road to get out of your street. The Paradise Campfire was a disaster partly because they didn't have another road for people to get out of their communities. And an easy thing for, I think, every community that is in danger up here to do is have people look at their streets and see if there is a second exit. Because it's not that hard to create one or make sure that gate, is there and you can look at a second exit. Those are the 2 things I want to say.
Yeah, that's a good question about here. I'll let you answer.
The city of Wheaton experienced a Bulls Fire in 2015. Through the help of several agencies, developed a resiliency plan. I believe Mount Shasta is creating one as well. I think it speaks to those elements that you're talking about. how do you get out of your town? What agencies are responsible for what? I think overall, Mount Shasta, as they build their plan, we address these plans. I think the shortcoming of the City of Leeds plan, it's a great plan. It's a lack of manpower sometimes to carry out those plans and the community's willingness to participate in those endeavors.
And actually, the second thing too, so I'm originally from the Midwest, so I'm from Wisconsin. One of the things that is interesting to me in talking to a couple of different wildfire professionals is the only thought is trying to get out, but there is also hunkering down situations, and also teaching people that if you aren't able to leave, there are certain things you can do in the case that a fire has hit your community. So I'm familiar with these because we have tornadoes and we just deal with it. We hunker down in our houses and we're trained from a very young age how to do that. So I think that's something that we've lost in the conversation because we're trying to flee something that's natural here. Wildfires are a very natural thing here, they're not going to stop. The reason why we suppress them is the reason why they're getting so bad now, because we haven't allowed the natural system to take place. So there is another facet that I think people need to start working on as far as, what do we do if we can't get out? There are safety things you can do.
Okay, that's great. How do you really engage with your citizens? I mean, sometimes it's maybe you're engaging too much with your citizens and how packed the room is, but when you learn things as an elected official, you're going to meetings, you're learning about these plans and stuff. How do you keep that as a two-way street between the citizens of your community so that their ideas can be brought forward and they can also be informed and given knowledge?
So I can start. So we created the Disaster Planning Advisory Committee to give volunteer residents of the city of Dunsmuir the ability to have better advisory roles with our city council. They do go out into the community and talk to individuals. One of the things we're also we benefit from is just the camaraderie of our residents. We do have a lot of survivors of the Paradise Fire that have come up and live in the city of Dunsmuir. And so a couple of our residents, Paris is one of them, she organized a potluck for them to come and meet the rest of the community. So we have a unique situation in the city of Dunsmuir where we have people who've recently experienced a very traumatic event. And so they are able to share things with us if they're able to. That's also a very difficult conversation to have. But we have the perspective of someone who's actually been through it. And so we're using that in a creative and constructive fashion to make sure that we're not repeating some of the issues that happened in Paradise up in the city of Dunsmuir. So we have a lot of social events that are geared towards those people. We also have a strong neighborhood watch program that's been up and running. So we're trying to have these separate events that are around socializing and around camaraderie rather than us talking at people. Council meetings are not necessarily the most conducive for that.
So I was, after I became mayor, I wanted to be more active in the community, and I thought about what can I do, and I decided to start visiting Alta Vista Senior Apartment Complex because I heard that maybe there were some needs there, and building a stronger fabric in the community means also identifying where are the weak points in the fabric and try to strengthen those, and that's what I was trying to do. So since February, I was meeting with them weekly, asking them about their own personal plan of evacuation. Their first initial attitude was, well, who's going to save us if we're in trouble? Who's going to come rescue us if we don't have transportation or we can't get out of our apartment? And so for weeks, we talked about what they could do for themselves. And that culminated after a couple months of visits with the fire department coming to visit them and talking to them about what they can do for themselves. So really, it's encouraging community members to think for themselves, to prepare for themselves, to take care of themselves, build their own networks, know where your family communication links are, know who your friends are that can help you in times of need. Just building that network. Where are you going to put your pets? Do you know someone who can take your pets if you need it? And then when I listened to the fire department come give a presentation to Alta Vista, again, giving feedback, one is, do you have all your important documents put together? And some people said, yes, it's in a nice file box in my car. Unfortunately, at Alta Vista, people's cars were getting broken into. So I said, what about a digital backup? You have your phone. Make sure you have at least something in the cloud in addition to your hard copy. So back up your backup, make sure that you're safe and you feel secure in taking care of yourself. What's the message?
Having gone through the weed fire, I would say having a plan on how you evacuate when there is an emergency is extremely important. Knowing where you can leave town safely. We were very fortunate that we did not have a loss of life, but what we understood after this event took place was that fire is a very uncharacteristic beast. It doesn't go in a line, it goes where it pleases and it creates its own weather patterns. And it just sneaks through a community. It could have a massive impact as far as widespread, but more or less it follows wind currents that are created with the fire. So as we have a fire department that have a 911 reverse system, I guess is what it's called. Code red. So it does notify people, but that presumes people are home. It presumes people are awake. It presumes a lot of things. We were very fortunate that we didn't have loss of life, but it's always a reality. I think understanding how you respond to that fire is very important. You have to be able to rely on your neighbors. You have to be willing to give up and leave. A lot of people resisted leaving, thinking that a fire department may save them. You need to leave. Those things need to be stressed ahead of time. Very hard to leave your pets, but you may have to do that. You should back up your systems, not only in the cloud, but backing your information with a friend, possibly a friend that doesn't live in your community, or even one that lives in another part of your community. It would always be a good idea. Clouds are wonderful, but a lot of people, we have a mix of community that don't use computers. That might seem strange to some, but it is a fact. I run an insurance agency, and one of the things that I go through is how do you communicate? Is it U.S. mail? Is it the post office? With the post office, is it email? Do you know how to open an attachment? Do you communicate? Do you use a cell phone? All of those things enter into how people communicate, store information. Those are just some small essentials, and then how do you get out of town? I mean, a lot of people, they're captured in there. So for me, there's a lot of things that your city needs to do. We have come up with, the city of Weed did a resiliency plan, and it was paid for by an agency, which was really nice. We've only taken this to a small place because we haven't really implemented a lot of these items that are in here. We are hampered by staffing issues. There's a lot of information in this book, but your local agencies have to have the wherewithal to carry those things out. And the wherewithal is actually developed by your tax dollar. So sometimes we get strangled by how much tax we have to spend to get some of these things implemented. So when we're looking for growth, we look for growth for another number of reasons. One is so that we can implement plans that keep our public safe.
And that brings up a good point of moving away just from fires or floods or volcanoes or one-time disasters just swoop down on us. I think in Siskiyou County, it's fair to say that for a number of years, the economy hasn't been all that great. And as leaders in the community, you've had various approaches to help your community thrive from a planning point of view, from an economic, from an environmental point of view. Maybe each of you could talk just a little bit about how your plans for your city's thriving, what your approaches are, what you think your opportunities are. Whoever wants to answer first.
Doug right here. So Dunsmuir is fortunate in that we don't have very strong planning, but yet we're thriving. Our downtown is actually fairly full with local businesses. Like I said, I think it goes back to the residents themselves in the city of Dunsmuir have a lot of gumption. That if they want to get things done, they're going to get things done. And I think the unique thing that happens down there is we kind of get out of their way and let them do that for the most part. I think we're doing really well. We're a younger community, which is unique for Siskiyou County. 2 of our city council members are 28, which I'm pretty sure we're the youngest elected officials in Siskiyou County by like a couple years. Maybe a decade or so.
Because you didn't have enough to do.
Yeah, we're so bored. I'm like the vice chair of the Siskiyou County Air Pollution Control Board as well, so, just add a whole bunch of things on there. But yeah, I mean, it goes to say, I think we're getting there. The city of Dunsmuir has seen a huge loss in the loss of railroad jobs. The collapse of the timber industry really impacted the town itself, because those were the 2 industries back in the day that really built the city of Dunsmuir. So we're really trying to reinvent who we are as a city. I think our trout fishing has been amazing ever since the Cantera loop spill. We've been building off of that. Only recently did I read a report that we're actually considered fully out of that, which that happened in 1991, I believe. So, I think Dunsmuir's had its fair share of issues, but I think we're coming out of it, and we're seeing our residents really take pride in their community. And so as a city council member and a mayor, I support that. And so we have to listen to them and adapt our community to the needs of those residents. So we're not going to look at Weed or Mount Shasta for how we're going to develop and thrive in the future, because, we have our unique strategies and our unique challenges.
I would probably slightly disagree with that approach, but I do believe that each town needs to build its own economic resiliency. But what we've been working with lately is that resiliency for our whole county is based more about not so much a competitive nature, but as a compatible nature, where if something is going on in Dunsmuir, how can we share that positive influence with other communities? If something is going on in Mount Shasta, how can we share that positive influence with Lee or Wairika or wherever? So we're looking at, on a scale of the economy, there are certain things that go on in Dunsmuir and Mount Shasta and Lee and Wairika and Etna at different points of time. How do we build all of those together as a network and become a little bit more self-sufficient? The big scales of the railroad are gone, the big scales of the lumber mills are gone. Communities have taken a long time to recover from things like that, where I know in Weed at one point, Weed had 1,200 employees at Long Bell. The new replacement is Roseburg. Roseburg, because of scales, has gone down to probably anywhere from 125 to 200, depending if there's peak seasons. That's a far cry, so that there's a big gap in there from your employment of the past and where are we moving to the future. There's a big move in Siskiyou County for the future to be more of a kind of an ecotourism type of basis. That has its pitfalls too, so you can't go, you always have to be guarded about those things, but we are working with organizations now that kind of jointly put these things in perspective. If something is going on in Dunsmuir, and like the fires came through Dunsmuir last year, which I know had wreaked havoc on their economy, they influenced Mount Shasta as well. But how can we turn that little bit of disaster possibly a positive for North End that wasn't experiencing some of that at that exact time. So it's how do you refer what may have happened in Dunsmuir and make it a positive for Bioregional or Etna or some other part of our county on a scale of economy.
Yeah, sounds like you're reaching across the divide with that
I'm
one.
trying.
Yeah. We have a really fantastic staff at the city of Mount Shasta. And
Other hats.
I'm very privileged and honored to be working with the quality of staff that we have, city manager, city planner, deputy city clerk, the finance director. They're all very talented, intelligent, gung-ho staff, multitasking, doing great work. And one of the things that our city is doing, as you may know, is that we're rewriting the general plan, which is a big deal. It's a multi-year project. We're on the city website. We're asking citizens to please be involved in this process, because how do you determine a direction of the city? Well, you ask your citizens where they want to go. And so we are constantly looking for citizens to be involved in the process and getting their input. The dynamic between the county and the city is interesting, because I heard recently that the county's general plan hasn't been updated since like 1980. 83, so we're looking at, what is that? 36 years? 36 years of outdated general plan versus a city, Mount Shasta, looking to modernize its plan. So there is the stretch between what a small city in its own jurisdiction can do versus the county. County has apparently a lot of challenge financially. We're all doing a lot of work with a small amount of staff, so we're all multitasking. It's an interesting dichotomy. It's an interesting relationship, because as Mount Shasta moves forward with the new general plan and the county continues to sit on an old general plan, you can see how those tensions could potentially increase. So working across the county, I think, is important to note and have that win-win relationship. You know, we progress here in the city, and hopefully that influence will penetrate out through other areas of the county, other cities, etc. That's our hope. Having a good vision. The one statement I love in the 2045 vision for Mount Shasta is the residents or the citizens take pride in their ability to communicate with each other. And I think we have a long way to go, but it's a great goal to have. So I look forward to continuing to try to improve our communications.
Molly, you had a question?
I now have two, actually. I think I'll ask one, and maybe you'll give me a chance to ask the other. It seems to me, from my 15 years here, that tendency has been, at least at the county level, and to some extent at the city level, to look for corporations to bail us out economically. And that comes at a very high price, because the corporations don't give a, they may say they care about the local citizens, but they really don't. They just want to get their profits. And so I'm wondering to what extent resiliency means getting away from that dependency on corporations and building local small businesses.
Great question.
Greetings, everyone.
Who wants to take it first?
Hello, beautiful people. Want to let y'all know that our
I understand the tendency to
items donated from local companies. We've got gift
attack large corporations. I get it, and I understand. But in we have entertained the idea of potential growth, where our growth patterns are. Weed is a little bit different than the rest of our South County, I would venture to say. And please, these are my opinions. I won't put those opinions on the rest of my council. But I think the fact that we've come under some scrutiny for involving loves, and I can't go into a lot of detail with some of the loves because it is a litigated issue right now. But I think we looked at the issues that love presented and what a city needs to thrive. Some of that has to do with tax base and how we get our money. We still have a downtown area that is still struggling, so we still have to survive as a community. We are not introducing things that has been suggested as introducing too many trucks. The trucks exist as they are. We are capturing some of that scale of economy, I get it. However, we do have, I just was looking at a report the other day that said, was looking at the condition of our infrastructure, in particular streets. The grading for the city of Weed was about, this is 2017, and I don't think it's improved. It was about 43%, city of Mount Shasta was about 44%. Dunsmuir,
Probably worse than
about 42, somewhere around there. That is on the grade of a very, very poor. The only place that you can fix your streets, you can wait for tax dollars to come to you from the state. Most of the tax dollars that come from the state are swept away. I think in the last year, I think Siskiyou County got, the total Siskiyou County got $4.5 million, I believe was the scale there. Of that $4.5 million, $4 million went to the scales in Dunsmuir, which means that the state took those tax dollars. The other $500,000 went to all of Siskiyou County. So it doesn't leave us with much, and I think anybody here that's on a city council understands when you hit those big potholes, it really hurts. You have to hear it from your constituents. So, or how long are you going to wait? So you have to be able to generate funds to repair it. And I'm just talking about streets. We haven't got into the public safety issue. We haven't talked about our water, sewer, and garbage, which I know they're independent, but all of those things that as a city you have to weigh. Get corporate dollars is, I struggle with that. It's really difficult, at least in the city of Weeds scenario, to not take a look at what we just did with attempting to push loves into a little shoehorn. But again, when your streets are falling down, when you need more law, I don't know if you need more law enforcement, but you need to you have to have capital improvements, you have to have a police car, you have to have a fire engine.
Yeah. I guess for the city of Mount Shasta, getting to yes has been difficult. We hear no from the community a lot. No to the water bottling plant, no to cannabis, no to
Starbucks,
no to Starbucks, no to
Dollar General.
no to Dollar General. No, it's not parks as in our jurisdiction, but our community just voted no.
Walmart, a long time ago.
No on med. So I think our community's in the habit of saying no to things, and I'm looking to get to yes. I thought the cannabis model was good. What that is small family-owned businesses, which is in line with our mission. Small family-owned businesses, local residents, local folks who come in, want to be entrepreneurs, even the kombucha booth out there. Neon wants to, Neon and
Nyan and Rebecca.
Nyan and Rebecca. There's another small family-owned business. They want to open a little cafe with some kombucha. That's the type of business that Mount Shasta wants. We're not really into the big boxes and the what every every town looks alike in America with the Target and the Home Depot. No, we're really looking to stay small and intimate and family-owned business. So we're looking for that, yes.
Great, yeah. We'll take maybe one or two more questions afterwards.
Okay. Just to address that really quick, I mean, we're talking about the city perspective of it, but you also need to think about the resident perspective of it. And it's not possible for all different types of income levels to be able to afford Berryvale or a local artisanal shop. That's just a fact that things cost a little bit more. When we have, because the city of Dunsmuir has Dollar General, but that may be the only source of food for certain people in our community. And so there is a space for large corporations in each city. I think it's determining, similar to what Barbara was saying, it's determining what level your community is comfortable with. If you're comfortable with more franchises, if you're comfortable with more big box stores, that doesn't mean necessarily that your community is wrong. They're communicating what they want and what they need. So for us in Dunsmuir, yes, we do support our local artisans. We have the Dough Cook, the Wheelhouse, Cafe Madalena's, but I can tell you that a majority of the people who live in Dunsmuir are working income individuals, typically multiple people working in the household. And so we have to talk to them and see what their needs are. They can't afford going to Cafe Madalena. They can't afford something. Yeah, I mean, a lot of us can. So we do have to keep that into perspective that, you know, we can't necessarily just rely on local artisanal shops for everyone in our communities, especially when we start talking about the food security programs. Sometimes they don't apply to some of those artisanal booths or things like that. That's why it's great that Mount Shasta hosts a farmers market of locals that can take those payments. You know, we have to think of the bigger picture, and, you know, there is a little bit of privilege in saying we're only going to have small local shops, because we're saying that from a comfortable income perspective and from, like, I feel okay shopping at the local places and supporting local, but I have the income to do that. But if I was making minimum wage, and if me and my partner were both only making minimum wage, we would not be able to say that statement. There will be other things that we have to prioritize other than just local. But there is an opportunity with franchises, even though it is a national franchise, it is owned by a local owner. And there are certain ways to look at the corporate structure and see what level that you're comfortable with. So it's not a perfect world. I wish I could say that we're going to completely get rid of Amazon and all shop local, but that's not necessarily the reality for everyone in our communities.
All right, I'm going to have one more question. Angelina, let me give you the microphone here.
I appreciate that distinction you just made, Juliana. If a corporation is actually offering something that is of need and benefit to the local communities, then we should take higher consideration if they're providing a real need. My question was, in Siskiyou County, I have heard a lot of sentiment around, you know, everyone's thinking about how do we move our forests into a direction of making our communities a little less vulnerable to catastrophic wildfire. And it sounds to me at the county level, they're really heavy on the vegetative management or just fuels reduction, just pretty much clear cut. And then there's another sentiment that's like, well, that you touched on, Juliana, that if we bring back the prescribed fire, if we start harvesting our forests more for selective logging and make it less profit motivated, but more in the direction of restoring healthy forest ecosystems, that is the best way to protect our communities from catastrophic wildfire. And I'm curious what, at the city level, what the conversation is around forest management and how do we make our communities more resilient in the face of pending fire. And if you know of any legislation that the folks might not know of yet that might provide financial opportunities for a new way of managing our forests.
Okay, good question. Who wants to take it first? Raise your hand. There you go.
Okay, well, our local fire department is working near the intersection of 89 and Interstate 5 over at the landing, and they're doing thin
Shaded field work.
shade, it's called a shaded fuel break. So before they started their work, it was basically a wall for us, you couldn't walk through, and then they thinned it out so that you could walk through. They left a lot of,
See through it.
you can see through, they left a lot of the major trees, and it's a lot of burning. So that's the effort that we would like to see carried out to other areas near our town.
I would say a lot of it's just poppy talk. First step. One, we live in a forested area. If we really made ourselves safe, we'd have to clear cut back about 1,000 feet from all of our borders. I don't think that's going to be a desirable result. I think knowledge about fire safety and our population, even if it's in our homeless population, we need to be fairly guarded. I don't know what we could provide, but I do believe that just thinning some trees is not going to get us there. I know in the city of Weed, we have cut back considerably. We have been very active. I believe Caltrans has also been very active in getting trees and a lot of brush taken back. But as they sit there, those chips are sitting there. So for ultimately a couple of years, you're just sitting on some coals. If a fire strikes, they're just going to sit and smolder for a very long time and create another issue. But I think diligence within our population is one of our, should be one of our primary goals. I don't think just thinning is good, but I don't think when a fire jumps anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 feet to 2,000 feet, depending on slope, thinning up a few hundred feet is not going to do us that much good. So, I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't help, but it's not really the end game here.
So there's a couple different pieces of legislation, and I don't know their numbers right now, but before Ted Gaines left office or is leaving office, he passed a couple of different bills for healthy forests. So there is quite a bit of funding coming up for that aspect. The state of California also has set aggressive greenhouse gas reduction goals, which they're starting to point towards adequate forest management as a way to better carbon sequester those greenhouse gas emissions. So a lot of people are looking at the forest management from not the perspective of disaster resilience, but for greenhouse gas emission reduction. So you can kind of look at the problem in a number of different lenses to get, whatever money you want. Frankly, there's a lot of money out there. But we just need the time to apply for all the grants. But it's not going to be one source that's going to fix everything. The city of Dunsmuir has the issue of being a canyon. There's no moving up the ridges for us, and so most of those are owned by private property owners. Landvest is one of the companies coming in to do a lot of shaded field breaks as well as thinning projects. And actually, I had a really nice conversation with a couple of foresters about the benefits of clear cutting and then replanting certain species back into the area and looking at the genetic makeup of those trees, and that's a bigger conversation about plant genetics if you want to have it, we can. But it's going to need to be a multidisciplinary and a multi-tool solution that we're going to have to look at. Not every property is going to be the same. You've got absentee owners as well who own large properties. In that case, I think the insurance companies are going to come in and do a lot of that. For example, our neighbors in North Dunsmuir had to cut down at least 2 of their trees and pretty much limb up all of their trees, which increases the amount of fire resilience for their property, whether you agree with how they, catalog all those different measures or not. So you're going to see a lot of different things happening. I don't think one solution is going to fix it for everybody, because if we came in, like you were saying before, the idea of clear cutting everything didn't really work. So it's going to have to be a number of different types of prescriptions for the different types of forests. And sometimes it's not the trees that are the issue, but it's the ground cover that needs to go in. we all have to get our rakes and start raking the forest. So, I saw my opportunity and I took it. But I think you're seeing a lot more support from Sacramento for us up here, especially when you start talking about the Sacramento River starts up here with headwaters. Those are different things that are going to need to come out in conversations, and I think the state's listening. I think they realize that a lot of the major fires could have been prevented with, some much cheaper solutions. The newest number is for every dollar that's invested in hazard mitigation, you're saving $7 in post-disaster recovery.
Say that again?
So for every $1 that's invested in hazard mitigation, so if you invest $1 in clearing the forest, you're saving $7 in post-disaster recovery. So that's the new ratio.
All right, that's very good. I'm going to ask you, what, okay, all right. Well, I was going to,
Power line.
I'm going to let Molly have her question, and after that, just so you're thinking, my last question on the sheet I gave you was, what do you never get to say to each other, right? But this is an opportunity for the three of you to be together. So mull on that while Molly asks her question.
My question is simply, bury the goddamn power lines. Every single fire that has happened, disastrous fire, has been caused by down power lines. We've got to get them underground.
That's
Money, but it's got to happen.
So I can address that one.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things you also can think about is energy resilience is a big thing that's being pushed right now. So looking into battery power that goes with the renewables that may not be able to provide power at all hours of the day. So in a sense, you could actually get rid of your power lines if you start investing in your own home systems, as well as cities investing in regional microgrid scales. So there's a lot of other conversations there. There's also a pot of money that cities can annually apply to at the county level called Roll 20. That does pay for the undergrounding of power lines. And then you're also seeing more investment from Cal OES and FEMA for undergrounding as hazard mitigation, not just for fires, but also, like I said before, during heavy snow events, power will go out, and that's a dangerous thing for people who may need those. Their heat is electric based, so those are different things that are coming out of that. So it's a bigger conversation than just bury the power lines. It's also rethinking the entire energy system for some of the inefficiencies that are there.
Is Mount Shasta City going for Rural 20?
I don't know, Barbara, are they? I haven't heard about Roll 20, but we're going solar for the wastewater treatment plant and for city buildings.
the city of Weed has already done our wastewater treatment plant, and our city hall has all been converted to solar. It is actually done fairly well. We did an exchange system, I think. Don't quote me on exactly the numbers, but I think we're taking our expense, I think it was $120,000 a year approximately for City Hall and the sewer department to pump all the waste and stuff. And we just exchanged that for solar panels. And I'm not sure the time period for the payoff, but after so many years, then we will be free of that. We have also applied for, we used our Rural 20 money. Every city gets allotted so much Rural 20 money. I shouldn't say, but the big holder of Rural 20 money is the county. We are just purchasing, we made an exchange deal with the county to purchase Rural 20 money for about, I think it was, don't hold me to it, I don't know if it was 10 or 20 cents on the dollar. So we have applied for about a couple $1 million worth of Rural 20 money to start some underground features in some of our area. We're limited, and every city is limited to what you can purchase. So those are the other things that, so when we put in the loves and we want tax dollars, so I get the sacrifices.
We are going to be having music in 10 minutes, so I'm going to wrap this up. I know it's a fascinating conversation with some amazing and fascinating people. The last question was, I don't know if you guys ever get together for coffee or beer or whatever you do. But I mean, what kind of things are you going to, boy, as leaders in this community, as the three mayors here, but, what can we talk about that we haven't talked about in some boring city hall meeting? What would you really like to have a conversation with your colleagues here at the table? And whoever wants to start.
I think it would just go back to the energy independence thing. So the city of Dunsmuir is looking at harnessing the water pressure that naturally occurs in our water pipes for hydroelectric power through the city lines. But it would be interesting to talk to the other cities about how to pool resources for energy systems.
I'm not sure, actually. It seems like we're always putting fires out and we literally to get fires to work. But under fire, so I do get involved with Barbara already on a couple of economic development issues. So I do see her. I also am extremely busy with several other committees, so I don't really have a chance to explore that idea, to tell you the truth. That's all I got.
I guess since the Bowles fire happened in Weed, and you've lived through that experience, it seems like we have a lot to learn. And one is, sometimes we get into these habits of stick construction. The construction that we know we're very familiar with, we go back to. How can we introduce new construction ideas that are more fire resistant into our habits? In other words, I'm on city council, so I'm not supposed to be, an activist, but I am looking for change and looking for new creative ways that we can address, be preventive, be proactive in addressing emergencies.
Okay, well, I'm going to thank all three of you, Barb Wager from the city of Mount Shasta, Ken Palfini from Weed, and Julia Lucchesi from Dunsmuir and other points beyond. It's been a really interesting conversation, and all I'm going to say is that I really encourage you guys to have a monthly beer together. So,
All right.
all right, thank you very much. Thank you so much.